Drop a blanket on the floor in front of a dachshund and watch what happens. Within seconds, the dog is gone. Not sitting on it, not lying beside it, but somewhere deep underneath it, having tunneled in head first without a moment's hesitation. Nobody taught them that, and no amount of training will talk them out of it. That single habit tells you more about this breed than almost anything else, and yet most of what gets repeated about dachshunds misses it entirely. Their reputation for stubbornness is a misreading. Their reputation for fragility is only half right, and a great deal of the standard advice given to owners quietly makes their most serious health problem worse. That's why today, we bring you a bumper collection of 100 facts about the dachshund, many of which you have probably never heard before. Some of them will explain a behavior you have been fighting for years. Several could add real time to your dog's life. Stay with us until the end, because the final section is the one that matters most. Let's get started. 1. It is the legs that are short, not the back that is long. This is the first surprise, and it reframes everything else. Measured against body weight, a dachshund's spine is not dramatically longer than that of other dogs its size. What is genuinely unusual is how short the legs are, and that shortness is what makes the body look stretched. 2. The short legs come from a form of dwarfism. A growth gene copied itself and reinserted into the wrong place in the genome, and the result is that the leg bones stop lengthening early while the rest of the dog develops perfectly normally. The same mutation appears in several other short-legged breeds. 3. A second, separate insertion causes the disc problems. This matters enormously. Short legs and disc disease are related, but they are not the same genetic switch, which is precisely why some short-legged breeds suffer far less spinal trouble than dachshunds do. 4. The front paws are shovels. Look closely and you will see they are noticeably larger than the back paws, slightly turned outward, and shaped like paddles. The whole front end of the dog is built around the act of digging, and it shows. 5. The loose skin is deliberate. Dachshunds carry noticeably slack skin around the neck and shoulders, which in a working dog prevents tearing and snagging when the animal has to reverse out of a tight space backwards. It is one of the few breeds where loose skin is a functional feature rather than a cosmetic one. 6. That jutting breastbone is called the keel. It projects forward at the front of the chest and houses a surprising amount of lung capacity for such a small animal. Run your hand down the front of a dachshund and you can feel it clearly. 7. The deep chest is why the bark is so loud. It acts as a resonating chamber, which is why a 10-pound dog can produce a bark that sounds like it belongs to something 3 times the size. This is not a quirk of the breed. It was the entire point of building them this way. 8. The ears have a job beyond hearing. Those long, low-set ears sweep scent upward towards the nose as the dog moves along the ground, and they simultaneously shield the ear canal from soil and debris. They are working equipment, which is also why they need checking and cleaning more often than upright ears. 9. The straight tail was a handle. Carried in line with the spine rather than curled over the back, that tail gave a handler something to take hold of when a dog needed drawing back out of a hole. It also made the dog easier to spot in long cover. 10. They were deliberately selected to be noisy. A dog working underground and out of sight had to keep barking continuously so the person above could locate them by sound alone. Every dachshund owner complaining about excessive barking is living with a carefully bred feature. 11. In Germany, they are sized by chest circumference. Not by weight and not by height. The measurement is taken around the rib cage, and it is the single most practical measurement you could choose, because the rib cage is the part of the dog that has to fit through an opening. 12. The smallest size is the rabbit dachshund. A chest of 30 centimeters or less, bred deliberately in the late 19th century for the narrowest burrows, it remains a fully recognized size across Europe and is almost unknown in English-speaking countries. 13. The middle size is the miniature, a chest measuring between 30 and 35 centimeters, with anything above that classed as a standard. A heavier dog with a narrow chest will therefore be classified smaller than a lighter dog built like a barrel. 14. America uses a completely different system. There are only two sizes recognized, standard and miniature, and the division is by weight rather than chest, with miniatures defined as 11 pounds and under at 12 months of age. This is why size labels do not translate cleanly between countries. 15. Miniatures were not made by crossing in toy breeds. Early attempts to shrink the breed that way produced dogs with the wrong build and the wrong temperament entirely. Breeders abandoned the approach and instead selected the smallest true Dachshunds generation after generation, which is why miniatures still look like proper Dachshunds rather than scaled-down toys. 16. The breed standard cares a great deal about teeth. A full set of 42 teeth and a correct scissor bite are specified with unusual emphasis, because a dog expected to face a cornered animal underground could not afford a weak jaw or missing dentition. 17. Most of their muscle sits at the front. The forequarters of a Dachshund are disproportionately powerful compared with the hindquarters, which is exactly what you would expect in an animal built to dig and to pull itself forward through a confined tunnel. 18. Their skin is thicker than most small breeds. Another working adaptation, offering some protection against scrapes and bites in tight quarters. It also means they tolerate rough terrain rather better than their size suggests. 19. Their nails grow quickly and matter more than you think. Overgrown nails change how the foot meets the ground, which alters the dog's posture all the way up the spine. In a breed already carrying a structural disadvantage, nail length is not a cosmetic issue. 20. They are heavier at the front, which makes swimming hard work. Many Dachshunds will happily get into water and can swim perfectly well, but the front-loaded build means they tire faster than a balanced dog. A buoyancy aid is a sensible precaution around deep water rather than an overcautious one. Now we continue by looking at the coats, the colors, and the patterns, which are more complicated in this breed than in almost any other. 21. There are 3 coat types, and all 3 are the same breed. Smooth, long-haired, and wire-haired Dachshunds share one standard and differ only in coat and, to some extent, in temperament. 22. The wire-haired variety has a beard and eyebrows. Those facial furnishings give it a completely different expression from the other two, which is why people frequently fail to recognize a wire-haired Dachshund as a Dachshund at all. 23. Wire coats must be stripped, not clipped. Clipping cuts through the harsh outer hairs and permanently softens the texture while dulling the color. Hand stripping pulls the dead hair out at the root and preserves the coat as it should be. Most grooming complaints about wire-haired Dachshunds trace back to this one mistake. 24. Wire is dominant. A single copy of the gene produces a wire coat, which is why the variety spreads quickly once introduced into a line. 25. Long is recessive. 2 smooth-coated parents carrying the gene can quietly produce a long-haired puppy, which surprises breeders more often than you might expect. 26. The wire-haired variety was made with terrier and schnauzer blood. It came considerably later than the smooth, and it brought terrier temperament with it. Wire-haired Dachshunds are often described as the busiest and most mischievous of the 3. 27. The long-haired variety is generally credited to spaniel crosses. It also brought temperament along, and long-haired Dachshunds are frequently described as the softest and most biddable of the 3 coats. 28. Coat type is a genuine predictor of personality. This is not folklore. Owners and breeders consistently report that smooths tend to be the most people-focused, long hairs the calmest, and wires the most independent and comedic. If you are choosing a puppy, the coat is worth thinking about for more than grooming reasons. 29. 3 coats and 3 sizes give 9 official varieties. Under the international system, each combination is recognized separately, which makes the Dachshund one of the most subdivided breeds in the entire dog world. 30. The base colors run wider than most people realize. Red, black and tan, chocolate and tan, cream, blue, and Isabella all occur, and each looks markedly different depending on which coat type carries it. 31. Wild boar is a color almost unique to wire-haired dogs. It is a banded, grizzled mixture that shifts in appearance as the dog moves, and it is one of the most distinctive looks in the breed. 32. The dapple pattern is the Merle gene. It produces the mottled, marbled patches that people find so striking, and it behaves exactly as Merle does in other breeds. 33. A single copy of dapple is completely harmless. A dapple dachshund from a correctly planned litter is as healthy as any other dog, and there is nothing inherently risky about the pattern itself. 34. Breeding two dapples together is the problem. Some puppies then inherit two copies, and that combination causes deafness, blindness, severely undersized eyes, or eyes missing altogether. It is entirely preventable, and no responsible breeder pairs two dapple parents. 35. Here is how to spot the warning signs. A dapple puppy with a great deal of white, particularly around the head, combined with unusually pale blue eyes, deserves careful questions about both parents. Ask directly whether either parent is dapple and walk away from anyone who is vague about it. 36. Piebald is not dapple, and the two are constantly confused. Piebald is a separate recessive pattern producing white markings, and it carries none of the double dapple risk. Sellers frequently mislabel one as the other, sometimes innocently and sometimes not. 37. Cream is a dilution that keeps developing. True cream dachshunds continue to lighten as they mature, so the puppy you collect will not be the color of the dog you end up with. Shaded creams are born much darker and clear gradually over the first year or two. 38. Brindle and sable exist on top of everything else. Brindle lays dark striping over a base color, while sable darkens the hair tips. Combined with 3 coats, 3 sizes, and the patterns above, 2 purebred dachshunds can look almost nothing alike. Before continuing with the video, if your dachshund is barking, having potty accidents, ignoring you, or you're worried about their back, I put everything that actually works into a 30-day plan to protect their back, master potty training, and stop stubborn behavior. 1 printable page a day, 15 minutes, no experience needed. Links in the description. Let's continue. Now we look at behavior, and at the single biggest misunderstanding about this breed. 39. They rank near the bottom of the canine intelligence list. In the best-known ranking of dog breeds by intelligence, dachshunds place a very long way down, well into the lower third of all breeds assessed. 40. But that ranking measures one narrow thing. It scores how quickly a dog repeats a command given by a human, and how reliably it complies. It does not measure problem-solving, memory, spatial reasoning, or independent decision-making, and on those measures, dachshunds do rather well. 41. Their original job was done entirely alone. The dog worked out of sight of the handler, in the dark, in a confined space, facing an animal capable of injuring it, with no possibility of receiving instructions. Every decision had to be made independently. 42. So what looks like stubbornness is really autonomy. A breed selected for centuries to disregard outside input and act on its own judgment does not become a biddable obedience dog in a suburban living room. Understanding this changes training from a battle into a negotiation. 43. They have no eye contact loop. Herding breeds constantly check back with their handler, and that habit makes them easy to train. Dachshunds were never selected for it, which is why recall is unreliable and why yours so often appears to be deliberately not looking at you. 44. Once the nose engages, hearing effectively stops. This is not defiance. When a dachshund locks onto a scent trail, attention genuinely shifts away from auditory input, and calling louder achieves nothing. In open country, a long line is a far more realistic tool than trusting recall. 45. The blanket tunneling is denning behavior. It is completely normal and completely instinctive. Dachshunds will burrow into duvets, cushions, laundry piles, sofa gaps, and anything else that offers an enclosed space, and providing a covered bed or a snuggle sack satisfies the urge properly. 46. This creates a real hazard almost nobody warns you about. Because the dog disappears completely under bedding, people sit or lie down on a dachshund they did not know was there. Injuries from this are not rare. Check under blankets and cushions before you sit down, every single time, and tell guests to do the same. 47. They will excavate your garden. Digging is not boredom in this breed, it is vocation. Giving them a designated digging pit filled with loose soil or sand, and burying toys in it, redirects the instinct far more successfully than trying to suppress it. 48. The prey drive is genuine and serious. Squirrels, rabbits, rodents, and sometimes cats trigger a real chase response, and a dachshund in pursuit is remarkably difficult to interrupt. This is managed rather than trained away. 49. They are watchdogs by temperament. Alert, suspicious of unfamiliar people, and quick to announce anything unusual. Questionnaire-based research has found dachshunds scoring above average for reactivity towards strangers, which makes early, consistent, and positive socialization more important in this breed, not less. 50. They tend to bond intensely to one person. That devotion is a large part of the breed's appeal, but it also means separation anxiety is common, and that a dachshund left alone for long stretches frequently becomes a barking problem for an entire street. 51. Scent games settle them better than walks. 10 minutes spent hunting treats hidden around a room will tire a dachshund more thoroughly than a considerably longer walk, and it engages precisely the part of the brain the breed was designed around. 52. Barking is a job requirement, not a behavioral fault. Understanding that changes how you approach it. The realistic goal is teaching a reliable interruption cue and reducing the triggers, not producing a quiet dog, because a quiet dachshund would have been a useless one. 53. They are commonly slow to house train. A small bladder combines with a genuine dislike of stepping onto cold, wet grass, and the low body sits close to it. Consistency and a sheltered toileting spot matter more here than in most breeds, and patience is not optional. 54. They are highly food motivated, which is a double-edged sword. It makes training easier and weight management much harder, and in a breed where every extra pound loads a vulnerable spine, food motivation is something to use carefully rather than indulge. 55. They are not natural retrievers. A dachshund will happily chase a thrown ball and then see very little reason to bring it back to you. Fetch-based exercise routines rarely work well, which is another argument for scent-based games instead. 56. They can be possessive over resources. The same research that flagged stranger reactivity also found above-average scores for guarding food, toys, and resting places. Trading up rather than taking things away, and teaching a solid swap from puppyhood prevents most of it developing. Now we come to health. And this is the section we would ask you to pay closest attention to, because on this subject, the dachshund is genuinely unlike any other breed. 57. Roughly 1 dachshund in 4 will suffer intervertebral disc disease. That is the highest rate of any breed in the world, and it is not close. If you own this breed, this is the single most important thing to understand about them. 58. They dominate the statistics disproportionately. Dachshunds account for a very large share of all canine disc disease cases seen in veterinary practice, despite representing only a small fraction of the total dog population. 59. The discs harden rather than simply wearing out. In this breed, the soft center of the disc calcifies and loses its cushioning ability, turning what should be a shock absorber into something brittle. That hardened material can then rupture upward and press on the spinal cord. 60. The process starts far earlier than owners expect. Disc degeneration in dachshunds can begin before the dog's first birthday, long before anybody would think to worry about a spine, and long before any outward sign appears. 61. Calcified discs are visible on an X-ray. They show up clearly, and a straightforward radiograph can reveal how many a young dog has already developed. 62. The number of calcified discs at around 2 years predicts lifetime risk. This is one of the most useful and least known facts about the breed. A dog with many calcifications at that age carries a substantially higher lifetime risk than one with few, and it is measurable years before any symptoms arrive. 63. Some countries screen for it in breeding programs. Denmark and Finland have run X-ray screening schemes, selecting breeding dogs on the basis of those results, and disc disease rates in those populations have fallen as a result. It is one of the clearest demonstrations anywhere that breeding decisions change outcomes. 64. Body weight is the biggest thing you personally control. Every additional pound increases the load on a spine already working at a mechanical disadvantage. A dachshund should have a clearly visible waist and easily felt ribs, and erring slightly lean is far safer than erring slightly heavy. 65. Jumping down is considerably worse than jumping up. The damage comes from the impact of landing when the full weight of the dog drives through the front legs and into the spine. That single distinction should shape how you arrange your furniture. 66. Ramps and steps are preventive medicine, not indulgence. Placing them at the sofa and the bed removes the most frequent repeated impact in a dachshund's daily life. Most dogs learn to use them within a few days if you make the approach rewarding. 67. Stairs are a daily source of cumulative strain. Going down is the harder direction, and doing it multiple times a day for years adds up. Carrying them down, or fitting a gate, removes a significant amount of lifetime loading. 68. There is a correct way to pick one up. Never lift a dachshund under the front legs so that the body dangles, because it puts the entire weight of the hindquarters onto an unsupported spine. Support the chest with one hand and the rear with the other, and keep the back level throughout. 69. Use a harness, never a collar on the lead. A collar concentrates force on the neck vertebrae, which is exactly the region you least want to load in this breed. A well-fitted harness spreads that force across the chest instead. 70. Traction matters more than owners realize. Slippery hard floors force the legs to splay outward with every step, straining the whole structure. Runners and non-slip rugs along the routes the dog uses most, particularly at doors and around furniture, make a real difference. 71. Short nails are part of spinal care. Overgrown nails change how the foot loads the ground and shift the dog's posture. It is a small, cheap piece of routine maintenance with an effect that reaches all the way up the back. 72. Learn the warning signs now, not later. A hunched or arched back, reluctance to jump or use stairs, yelping when picked up, trembling, a wobbly back end, or the rear feet crossing over and scuffing the ground. Any of these justify a same-day call to your vet. 73. Sudden weakness in the back legs is an emergency. If a dachshund goes down, time is the single most important factor in the outcome, and the window for the best surgical results is measured in hours rather than days. This is never a wait until Monday situation. 74. Deep pain sensation is the key prognostic test. Whether the dog can still feel a firm pinch in the toes of an affected limb is the strongest single indicator of likely recovery, and it is one of the first things a vet will check. 75. Not every case needs surgery. Milder episodes are frequently managed with strict crate rest and medication. Strict genuinely means strict, confined, and quiet for weeks rather than merely calm, and cutting that period short is where most relapses originate. 76. Paralysis is very far from the end. Many dachshunds live full, active, and visibly happy lives in wheeled carts, and the breed adapts to them remarkably quickly. A diagnosis of permanent hind limb paralysis is not in itself a reason to give up on a dog. 77. Sensible regular exercise protects the spine. This surprises people who assume a fragile back means a sedentary life. Controlled, moderate, level ground activity builds the core and back musculature that supports the spine, and inactivity weakens it. The things to avoid are impact and twisting, not movement itself. 78. Discourage prolonged begging on the hind legs. Sitting up in that upright position repeatedly places the whole body weight through the lower spine at an awkward angle. It is charming, and it is worth not encouraging. 79. Patellar luxation affects the smaller sizes. The kneecap slips out of its groove, producing a characteristic skipping step where the dog hops for a stride or two and then carries on normally. Mild cases are managed conservatively, more severe ones may need surgery. 80. A form of progressive retinal atrophy affects miniature longhairs. It causes gradual vision loss, and crucially, there is a DNA test for it. Any breeder of that variety should be able to show you the test results for both parents without hesitation. 81. Lafora disease appears in miniature wire hairs. This inherited late-onset epilepsy is specific enough to that variety that it has become a standard screening question, and it too has a DNA test available. 82. Dental crowding is almost guaranteed. A full set of 42 teeth in a small, narrow jaw means overlapping and tight gaps, which traps plaque. Dental disease is one of the most common reasons dachshunds see a vet, and daily brushing genuinely extends life. 83. Obesity is the most common health problem in the breed. It is also the most preventable, and it makes every other condition on this list worse. Measure food rather than estimating it, and count treats as part of the daily total. 84. Cushing's disease appears more often than average. It causes increased thirst, increased appetite, a pot-bellied appearance, and thinning coat. And because those signs develop slowly, they are frequently dismissed as aging. 85. Despite everything, they are a long-lived breed. 12 to 16 years is entirely normal, and many exceed it. The conditions listed above are manageable rather than inevitable, and a well-cared-for dachshund has a very good chance of a long life. 86. One reached 21 years of age. A dachshund held the record as the world's oldest living dog at that age, which puts the breed among the most impressively durable small dogs on record. That's cleared up, so now we turn to history, and to some famous dachshunds you may not have realized were dachshunds. 87. In Germany, they are usually called Teckel or Dackel. The term Teckel in particular tends to be reserved for proven working dogs rather than pets, and the distinction still carries weight among German breeders. 88. German breeding requires demonstrated working ability. A dachshund there cannot simply be bred on looks and pedigree. Dogs are expected to prove themselves in field tests, which is why continental working lines often differ noticeably in build from show-bred dogs elsewhere. 89. One of their main modern jobs is tracking wounded game. A dachshund will follow the blood trail of an injured deer for hours across difficult ground, and they are used for exactly this purpose today in Germany and in parts of the United States. 90. The breed standard is remarkably old. Formal standards were written in 1879, and the German Breed Club was founded in 1888, making it one of the oldest single-breed organizations still operating anywhere in the world. 91. Queen Victoria kept them. Her enthusiasm did an enormous amount to establish the breed in Britain during the 19th century, and royal ownership was very likely the single biggest driver of their early popularity there. 92. The Dorgie came from a royal accident. The Queen's corgis were crossed with a dachshund belonging to Princess Margaret, and the resulting crossbreed persisted in the royal household for decades afterwards. 93. They were targeted during the First World War. Anti-German feeling was severe enough that dachshunds were rebranded in America, and owners reported open hostility in the street. Registrations collapsed and took years to recover, mirroring almost exactly what happened to the German Shepherd. 94. Waldy was the first official Olympic mascot in history. The mascot of the 1972 Munich Games was a brightly striped dachshund, chosen to represent resistance, tenacity, and agility, and no Olympic Games had ever had an official mascot before. 95. That year's marathon route was shaped like a dachshund. The course was deliberately laid out in the outline of the dog, which remains one of the more charming pieces of Olympic design ever attempted. 96. Picasso had a dachshund named Lump. The dog lived with him and appears in a number of his works, including his reinterpretations of Velázquez and by several accounts effectively took over the household. 97. Warhol and Hockney kept them too. Andy Warhol owned two, and David Hockney painted his own pair repeatedly across an entire body of work devoted almost exclusively to the dogs. 98. Dachshund races draw crowds, and breed clubs discourage them. Sprinting and sharp turning are precisely the movements that stress a vulnerable spine, and most veterinary and breed bodies would rather the events did not happen at all. 99. They have stayed in the top 10 for decades. Despite being one of the most specialized working designs in the dog world, the Dachshund has remained among the most registered breeds in the United States year after year, which is a remarkable run for a dog built to go down a hole. 100. And the two facts we would most like you to take away. Almost every serious problem this breed faces comes down to two things entirely within your control, which are body weight and impact. A Dachshund kept lean, lifted correctly, given ramps instead of jumps, and grip instead of slippery floors, is a fundamentally different animal at 10 years old from one that was not. And second, everything people find difficult about this breed, the barking, the digging, the selective hearing, and the tunneling into every blanket in the house, comes from the same set of instincts that made them extraordinary at their original work. You cannot remove them, and you should not try. You can only give them somewhere sensible to go. So there you have it, 100 facts about a dog that a great many people believe they already understand. Which of these facts surprised you the most? Let us know by writing in the comments, and subscribe if you would like the same treatment for your own breed, because it is coming. And if there is a suspicious lump under a blanket somewhere near you right now, check before you sit down. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.